Hey there, this is Paul John Rudoy coming to you to talk to you about Gamaya and how you can deconstruct the piece and reconstruct it however you need for your programming and your ensemble. So the piece initially was created with the idea of a bunch of different rounds strung together to make a concert work, something that feels like the pacing makes sense as a concert piece. But each of the sections, I'm sure you figured this out, they are all just rounds, which means you can change them just like any other round. For instance, the very beginning can be changed based on the texture that you want to create. Usually, it goes Gamaya, 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 Gamaya. That's the entrance. But what if you put them a little bit closer together? For instance, Gamaya, 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 and just by shortening the time for different entrances, it suddenly turns into a hotarukoi type texture, right? Totally different from the original texture printed in the score. You can make use of that texture however you want. In short, as a composer, especially for this piece, I encourage you to do whatever you want to make different textures and get your students and your choristers into creating different textures and seeing what they feel like, what they sound like, right? Totally useful. And you can use this for the end or letter C if you'd like. That's totally fine too, whatever works for you. You'll also notice that that tempo was relatively fast compared to what's in the score. That's also fine if you want to go faster or slower. It is up to you to make music with this material. You look at letter A and letter D, they are the same melodic content, right? The same melody and the same words, but the entrances are very much different. At letter A, asatoma sad, asatoma, 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 right? Those are the entrances. That's for the SATB version. But for the equal voice version, it's a little bit different. Asatoma sad, asatoma sad. Why is that? Well, I decided to change up the location of the reentrances because for equal voice, you need a little bit more breathing room in order to make sure that the melodic contour of each line is really heard by the audience. But in letter A, for the SATB version, when you have displaced octaves, you can put them right back to back, and because the octaves are different each time there's an entrance, our ears play tricks on us and allow us to hear more of that contour without having to space them out more. It's just something to think about. You could actually do it so that it enters a little bit differently. If you're doing an equal voice version or with SATB, you could go asatoma sad, Gamaya, asatoma sad. Totally fine. The benefit of that, and this piece in particular, is that you've got some dissonances already built in to the way that the piece is built and the mode that the piece is in. So lean into those dissonances and try things out. See what you think. So one last thing I wanted to mention, letter B. Letter B is the chantique section, but you don't have to keep the chantique section alone. You can add other parts to it, like the opening Gamaya. You can totally do that. Let's look at letter B. Let me move it down a little bit so I can show you the displaced octaves example. So, if you are trying to displace the octaves, make sure that there are a variety of different octaves that you're hearing, or, for instance, if you have a lot of sopranos and altos and only a few tenors and basses, why don't you put the sopranos and then the tenors and basses together and then the altos? In this section, that will totally work and bring out those contours and the open voices that you might hear from a choice like this. So we'll start right at letter B. And this is just a little bit lower so I can show you all those parts together. Shanti, 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 Shanti. Shanti, 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 Shanti. So by displacing the octaves, by starting with the basses and then going to the sopranos in this section, vice versa, or if you have limited parts, putting those parts, those limited parts, in the middle of splitting the other parts up, like the sopranos and altos and the tenors and basses together, you still get a really full texture by not doing much other than making sure that they're not back to back. If you put sopranos and altos back to back, then it won't displace the octaves as much. The other thing that I'd want to mention to you is that you don't have to do anything that's in the score if you don't want to. You can start with the last section and then move into letter A, or start with letter B and then move into the Gamaya, Gamaya, right? You can change up any order of any of these sections if you want. The sky is the limit for you in Gamaya. And depending on your needs, especially if it's virtual continuing into the next year, use that to your advantage. There's no stopping you from making this your own piece and a unique version of it that no one has ever heard before. Thanks so much.